Welcome back to the channel, Modeling Maestro here. You voted for it, and now it's time to start work on the F-8E Crusader from Hasegawa in 1/48 scale. Though this kit is over 20 years old, aside from the monogram kit, this is the only kit we have of the F-8 Crusader in this scale. Let me know in the comments if you've built this specific kit before. Despite its age, the kit has decent detail, recessed panel lines, and the plastic is crisp and clean. This kit will need to be modified to make a true E version, and since I plan on building an aircraft with VMF AW235, I will make those modifications in these videos. Work begins by scraping down the raised panel just behind the nose cone. On both sides, these should be flush with the aircraft. I like to use a scalpel for this kind of work, followed up by varying grits of sanding sticks. I will need to rescribe and add rivets to this area at a later time. Next, the ECM blister on the tail needs to be removed. I will say that I have seen some F-8Es with the ECM blister on the tail, so you will want to check out your references. Next, I started painting the cockpit tub and the cockpit side walls. I had a bit of interior gray left over from my A6A project, so I just used it up. I like to keep this color on the lighter side, since the color will darken after the wash, and all the other details have been added to the cockpit. I airbrushed the gray on the cockpit and the cockpit walls. Then, when dry, I added a gloss coat of Tamiya X22. Now it was time to add the wash. My preferred wash is a mixture of Winsor and Newton Artist oils thinned with turpenoid. I use a black color with tints of white and brown to create a dirtier gray color. A pure black wash against the gray would look too unrealistic. I apply the wash with a soft brush. I find that the more turpenoid that is applied to the oils, the faster the wash dries. However, the pigment will be weaker and more likely to lift out of the crevices and panel lines. You will know when the oil wash is dry when it takes on a flat appearance. If it is still glossy, it's still wet. Once the wash is dried, I use Q-tips to gently remove the excess from the surfaces, leaving the remnants in the crevices and details. Once the wash was dry, I airbrushed a coat of Tamiya Flat Clear. I purchased a photo etch set from Edward. This set is pre-colored, which I typically try to stay away from, but I decided I would just repaint any parts where I felt the color was off. I attached the side control panels with CA glue. Using my references as a guide, I also added some details to the side walls to add realism. I'm an Amazon associate. That means if you use the Amazon links in my video descriptions to purchase kits, tools, or equipment featured on the channel, I will earn a small commission at no extra cost to you. This is a simple way to support this channel while picking up the items you already need. I next clipped away the two halves of the intake. I checked the fit of these pieces to see just how the seam would need to be filled. At this point, I filled the pin marks with CA glue and sanded away excess. The nose gear wheel well also had some unfortunate pin marks, and I decided to cover each of these with a panel of sheet styrene. Before mating the two intake halves together, I opted to spray the interior Insignia white. I mixed my own Insignia white with Tamiya paints. To mix paints, I measure out the paint with pipettes into glass jars and add a metal bearing to help with the mixing. All of these items can be found in the description below. To be clear, the wheel wells and wheel struts of Navy aircraft from this era were gloss white, while the underside of the aircraft was a slightly more beige white called Insignia white. I imagine that the interior of the intake was also gloss white, but Insignia white in this case implied some subtle weathering to this specific area. Before I sprayed the white, I decided to mask the surfaces that would be glued. Tamiya Extra Thin melts the plastic to fuse the pieces together. When the plastic is painted, the product doesn't reach the plastic and the pieces will not stick. After I airbrushed the white, I decided to mask off the white areas and paint the bulkhead at the end of the intake black. This will give the impression that the intake continues further on. Now I was finally ready to glue the two halves together. I wanted to ensure I had enough Tamiya Extra Thin in the seam and waited a few seconds for the plastic to melt, then gave a good squeeze. My hope was that enough melted plastic would ooze out into the seam. The more plastic that fills into the seam, the less putty I will need to apply. The seam did fill nicely, but more putty was still required. I opted to use Vallejo putty. I squeezed it out liberally along the seam, then with Q-tips gently brushed away the excess. This process was done several times, allowing the putty to dry each time to get a smooth surface. Next, I used a drill bit in a pin vise to drill out holes for the 4 cannons on the side of the fuselage. Just a reminder, if you're enjoying this content, please leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. As I examined photographs of the Crusader, I found that many parked jets had 3 doors opened from the port side fuselage. These would be the 3 steps the pilot would take to board the cockpit. I had recently heard in an interview from an F-8 pilot that you had to step on with the correct foot in the correct order, or you wouldn't be getting into the plane. The 2 top steps will require a backing and a small door, while the step at the bottom is held by 2 struts that jut out of the hole from inside the aircraft, while the step itself is the hatch door. Therefore, the closed panels on these steps will need to be cut out of the fuselage. This became the perfect opportunity for me to try a new rotary tool. The tool is from a company called Cockpit, and this is their mini cordless rotary tool. They asked me to try this tool out in an upcoming video, so let's give it a try. The tool is turned on by this power button. Since this tool has a universal connector, I was able to use my Dremel chuck for the small drill bits. To help remove these panels, I will first drill several holes, then connect the holes with cuts and continue to remove plastic. I limited myself to the first of 5 settings. As you can see, the tool is cutting holes easily, but without melting the plastic. This tool made this task very easy. The tool is lightweight, and I absolutely love the LED light. There is a product link in the description, and if you use the discount code, you will get an extra 10% off. Compared to my cordless Dremel, as you see here, this tool is much easier to work with for this hobby. Next, I decided to thin out the inside of the fuselage. The plastic is a bit thick, so I cut it back with one of the grinding bits that came with the set. Now I start digging out the rest of the plastic. I have to be careful to not cut too much, keeping the blade just before the actual panel lines. Just a reminder, if you're enjoying this content, please leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. Once the basic shape is ready, I start using very small needle files. I have various shapes of these files. The square one works especially well to get a true 90-degree angle. Finally, I clean up loose strands and dust with just a small amount of Tamiya Extra Thin. Once the holes are finished, I glue thin sheet plastic to the inside of the model. All of the steps will be added later. Well, that does it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, please do leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.